Welcome everyone to another episode of the Maher Report, where we look at the latest United news. It was another interesting day, and some stories really were quite interesting, I suppose, because the main news is that Paul Pogba will be out for a few weeks. He has a thigh injury and he will miss some big games, especially the games in the Europa League. I don't know how much that's going to affect the team, but he was playing really well. He was one of our best players the last month at least, and it's going to be a big miss. It's going to be interesting to see how or if Ollie manages to get Donny in the team, but I wouldn't hold my breath. It looks like he's going to stick to that McFred combination to protect the defence, and Donny's going to be spending more time on the bench. The other news, the more concerning news actually for me, is that the talks for a new contract with Bruno Fernandes have stalled till the summer because he sees until he sees what the direction of the club is. Apparently Bruno was not impressed with all his comments after the game against Everton, that United are not in the title race. He felt that it comes across weak, and I don't blame him really. He when you score a worldie like that, and he any other team, that's a match winner, and instead it's only because of that goal that we didn't lose, and he has a right to be concerned. He wants 4 things resolved. He wants to make sure that we are keen on winning trophies, and he wants to make sure that United are on the same page on that fact. He's annoyed with our defence because the errors that kept being made, and he's called them out before, and he's doing it, and he's seeing the same mistakes, and I'm happy because that's what a true leader does. He does. The last time we had a captain like that was the likes of Roy Keane, where he would call out other departments, especially the defence, when they made mistakes. So that was a big thing for him, and rightly so. He was very patchy and unnecessary, the mistakes that were made against Everton. Again, we should have won comfortably, 3 or 3-1. He's also wants to see what the intent of the owners are in the window, see what kind of contribution they're willing to put in, because we know that last summer they were keen to sign Sancho and a few big players. In the end, they didn't put the money up, so to speak, and it was as though we got Cavani and all these other guys, there was a last-minute splash. It wasn't a coordinated, planned attack. It was just a bit of a free-for-all, and they got the players that came in, in a bit of a rush, and fortunately Cavani's worked out, but he wasn't happy with that, and neither were the fans. When you spend all summer waiting for Sancho and all these great players, and then last minute it's all turn around. You sign some kid that hopefully Diallo's a great player that nobody's heard of, and you buy a striker that was supposed to be on the scrap heap, but Cavani's come good, but it's not what we signed up for, and he's not happy, and he wants to make sure that whatever our intentions are as a club in the summer, that we fully back it this time around. No messing around, no last minute changes, or making things up on the fly, I suppose. And final problem he has is with Ollie. He's not happy about being subbed off. Now, I don't agree with Bruno on that front. He's our best player at the moment, before the Bruno Pogba injury, and he does need to be rested. We don't need to waste him on the full 90 minutes in games that we are winning. But I can see the competitor in him, and I can see why he wants to play every game, play every minute, and I don't have an issue with that, but I do think that is something that he needs to think about, because we need him fit and healthy for all the key games this season, not wasting additional minutes, tiring himself out in games that we've already wrapped up because it is a COVID season. We did have a shorter break, and we don't know how that is affecting the players, for health, physicality. In the long term, it might come out at the end of the season, the effect. So it's where there's an opportunity, some of our key players should rest, and Bruno is definitely one of the most key players, and he needs to take his breaks when Ollie subs him off. But I get his frustration, and I get why he wants to play every game. In other news, Ollie has warned De Gea. He made a kind of a jibe in the press after the Everton game that nobody's place is secure and it's not permanent, and it's not guaranteed, and everybody has to earn it. I really hope, I've been saying it since last season, that as a lesson, not even as a lesson, just to give him the motivation to find his best form again, that he should be dropped for Henderson. I'm not saying Henderson's a better goalkeeper, but I think he's capable of being our goalkeeper for now, until something is resolved. Either De Gea finds his form again and he reclaims that number one spot, or we look for, or Henderson proves himself and he becomes number one. But I think there's no harm. I know people talk about confidence issues, and once you drop a goalkeeper, it becomes a big problem. But I don't think that shouldn't matter. I think it's in any other position in the pitch, midfield strikers, they get rotated, they get moved around, they get repositioned, whatever you want to say it. People fight for their positions there, and they don't lose motivation. So I don't see how the goalkeeper is a problem. He should be able to be dropped, feel the motivation to get better, try and re-find his place in the team. And I would like to see Henderson. I think, like I said, I don't think Henderson's the answer, but he's more than capable of covering De Gea until he finds his best form, or until we find somebody else who's a long-term solution to it. And if it turns out to be Henderson, then that's great, because I don't understand how we have the two top five, three if you include Romero. I don't know what's happening with Romero, but top five goalkeeping contracts in the league. We have I think De Gea 1, and Henderson and Romero in the top five. So we've invested. We have the most money in goalkeepers than any other club. So they must be good enough. I was a fan of Romero, so but the moment we gave Henderson a big contract, then we really should have got rid of the other one. So I'd like to see Henderson. I think he'll play tonight, but we'll have to wait and see. But I don't see how. I just don't think De Gea feels the pressure of being dropped, because I don't think he believes he'll be dropped. So I think if we can get Henderson in, playing for a few games, and then it might inspire De Gea to find his form again, rather than we just letting him kind of get away with these bad performances that is costing us key games, key points. And we don't even have a special style. One of my critics of Ollie is that we don't play a certain style of football. So I don't understand why we always have to have Der in goal. It's not like he's a sweeper keeper. Because we play a certain brand of football. We have no real, a certain style that requires a certain type of goalkeeper. So I don't see the issue with Henderson taking charge. I think he's more than capable, and I hope that Ollie drops him for more than just this, FA Cup tie and so on. And we get to see a run from Henderson, get an idea of him, and hopefully in that time, what's his name? De Gea finds his form. In some transfer news, Sport 1 are still reporting that Dortmund are keen to offload Jadon Sancho for this summer, and they are willing to take a reduced fee. We know it's also already been reported that they are close to 100 million in debt because of the losses incurred through COVID, and they are desperate to make that money back. I think they do regret not taking United's offer in the summer, but they're now openly selling, shopping the player to try and create a competition for his signature. I think they misjudged the market last summer. I think and what's to come, and now they're ready to sell Sancho for a much reduced fee to clear their debt. As I mentioned, I don't. He's a great player. I'm more than happy to take him. I don't get why we signed some of the other players if we're now going to go back for Sancho. Diallo. People will say, "Oh, he's young," but so is Sancho. They're both young players, and why did we waste 40 million on Diallo and another kid? Pellistri, and all the last minute, in my opinion, panic buying we did at the window when they realised that we're not getting Sancho. It just doesn't make sense to me. Shouldn't we bring Diallo in now? Find out. I know it's a lot of pressure, but see where he is and if how we would cope in the league and stuff before we spend another 80-90 million on Sancho. So it's like I said, I'm more than happy to welcome him in, but our transfer policy baffles me. I don't get what the process is, the planning. Even for us, there is a budget, and I just feel like we're just spending money randomly, like just throwing it out there and then see who comes back. And there's no, and this goes back to the issue I have with Ollie is the system, the style of play, the identifying the type of players that we need, because none of them mesh. Ollie Fernandez doesn't mesh with Donny and Pogba. It's Fred doesn't mesh with McTominay. It's all a bit up in the air. What is our style of play? What is our football? And I said in the last video that I don't want us to spend another penny until a decision is made on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and there's an identity defined on our football and the style of play, and that needs to be questioned by senior management in the summer, because the last thing we need is if we get rid of Ole in the next 6 months or so, a new manager comes in and he has a mismatch of players that don't suit any particular style. They're half in, half out of whatever he wants to play. A ball-winning player like Ndidi, rather than offensive players that just keep leaving our defense exposed. We needed to. I know people are talking about centre backs, and maybe that needs addressing too. Decision being made on Bailly and Lindelof and Jones to an extent, because I don't see Maguire. I don't see the club admitting they made a mistake on Maguire, so he's going to be in the team. So we need to figure out what's happening to his long-term partner. So yeah, that is the section I would focus on, rather than signing Sancho and other more offensive players. But like I said, I don't understand the transfer policy of this club at the moment, and it all seems to be made up as we go along. So freestyled. The last thing I wanted to cover is a comment made by United legend Andy Cole, who to be fair, I didn't respect him as much as I should have at the time for what he did for the club, because he's a bit like those players that, other than goals, you didn't know what else he offered for the team. And that's what I felt. And overall, I think I always thought we could get somebody better than him. I know it sounds crazy, but at the time I did anyway. But he said something yesterday that I think I completely agree with, which is that Marcus Rashford will never be clinical enough to play number 9. And it's true. He's not. We've seen him. His conversion rate is quite poor. We've seen him play the lead role when covering for Martial, when he's given that opportunity, and he doesn't take the chances. He's not as he's not the most clinical striker we have. Mason is the way more clinical. And one of the things that upset me last year was that Ollie seemed to find it easy to sub off Mason rather than Rashford in games where we weren't penetrating and struggling to score, when we should have probably took off Rashford and moved Mason in the middle, in up front, and Martial out left, because we needed that bit of clinical finishing to get those goals in those tight games. And I completely agree with him. His exact quote was, Marcus will never nick himself the amount of goals in a season in, season out. He won't be that individual you're looking for to score. I don't think Marcus has got that clinical side in him. And I just think we do need to look at the long-term thing. You know, again, we've got another poor season from Martial. Whatever the reasons might be, you know, it's nearly, 6-7 years now? Like, how many great seasons have we had out of that? And we really need to address whether he's our number 9 going forward, or do we need to go in the market and look for a proper striker? Because, as I said, I don't think Marcus Rashford is the guy to do that. I'm sure if we got rid of Martial, Oli would push him up front, but he's just not clinical enough. And I'd rather see Mason Greenwood up front, to be fair. But I just think that Oli rates Rashford a lot higher than most people in terms of as a striker, and I hope that Martial comes back, gets some form, and you know, Cavani's doing a great job. But I really think that could be an issue that we might need to address in the summer, depending on how Martial is for the rest of the season.